The Hollow Ones. The rain had not stopped for 3 days. It whispered against the tall windows of Greyhaven Asylum, casting a sheen on the stone walls like cold sweat on a fevered brow. The asylum stood at the edge of the Brackenmore marshlands, forgotten by most and avoided by all. Its rusted gates and blackened spires pierced the sky like the bones of some buried cathedral, abandoned and defiant. Elias Crane arrived just past dusk, his lantern throwing long, crawling shadows across the moss-laced path. He was a historian, not by trade but by obsession. Whispers of Greyhaven's unsanctioned experiments had haunted obscure medical journals and local folklore alike. He had read of the Lazarus Project, a secret endeavor in the late 1800s to reanimate dead tissue through botanical necrosis. It sounded like lunacy or legend, but Elias was not deterred by disbelief. In fact, disbelief had never stopped anyone who went missing in Brackenmore. Inside, the asylum was mostly intact, though covered in the decay of decades. Time had not destroyed it. Time had simply forgotten it. The air was wet and sour with mildew, and the smell of long dead things hung in the walls like breath trapped in cloth. His boots echoed faintly as he moved down the main corridor, past iron doors with sliding grates and wheelchairs with dust-furred seats. He descended into the lower levels, the lantern casting golden light upon tarnished plaques and peeling wallpaper. It was there, in the records hall, that Elias found it. A locked cabinet with a brass plate reading H01. He picked it open with a chisel and found a stack of faded folders, brittle as dried leaves. The documents within were clinical notes, each stamped with a jagged insignia, a tree with roots shaped like skeletal hands. One file in particular stood out. Subject number 27. A gardener named Harold Vexley, employed at Greyhaven before being admitted as a patient. His condition was listed as early necrotic cognition, nonsense words in modern medicine. But what disturbed Elias were the final notations. Vexley had responded to the bloom. No further detail, just an ominous note scribbled in the margin. He no longer requires sustenance. He hears the root. Elias set the file down and stood, suddenly aware of the silence pressing against his ears. The rain had stopped. The wind, too. A dead hush smothered the corridor. Then came a sound. A soft rustling like dry leaves being crushed underfoot. He turned. Nothing. Only the darkness beyond the lantern's glow. And yet, he was no longer sure he was alone. He moved deeper into the asylum. Past hydrotherapy rooms and lobotomy theaters, he found the greenhouse wing, boarded, sealed. But the boards were warped with moisture, pried loose as if from within. Vines had pushed through the cracks, slick and dark, pulsing faintly as though alive. Elias pried the boards loose and stepped inside. The greenhouse was a cathedral of wrought. Glass panes hung shattered above, letting in mist and the moon's watchful eye. The plants inside were unnatural, huge, glistening and black-veined. They clung to the walls like tumors, wrapped around benches, chairs, even the skeleton of a medical cot. Elias moved slowly, the air thick with a scent not unlike freshly turned earth mixed with blood. Something in the soil here pulsed with ancient memory. In the center stood a raised planter bed of old wood and iron. A man, no, a husk, sat beside it, still as stone. His back was curved, his hands resting in the soil. He wore tattered overalls mottled with mold, and his head lolled slightly to one side. Elias raised his lantern. The man turned his head. The eyes were pale and unfocused, clouded by death, or something worse. The skin was parchment thin, stretched over a face that should not have been moving. A thin vine curled from his ear, twisting down his neck like a parasite. The figure smiled. "You've come to see the root," he said, his voice dry and distant, like the wind whispering through a tomb. Elias stumbled back. Who are you?" The man or thing stood slow and deliberate. "I was Harold. I am the first. We are many now." The soil in the planter stirred. Something began to rise. Not a plant. Not exactly. A mass of vines and decayed flesh, laced with bones and fragments of clothing. A humanoid form began to emerge, faceless and quivering, vines tightening around its limbs like marionette strings. "You brought light," Harold said, blinking slowly. "But the root likes the dark." Elias turned and ran. He sprinted down the hall, heart hammering, boots splashing through puddles of stagnant water and old blood. Behind him, the shuffle of many feet, not fast, but inevitable. He ducked into an office and slammed the door shut, bracing it with a filing cabinet. He tried to calm his breath, tried not to listen to the soft scraping outside. He stared at the wall where a mirror hung cracked and filthy. Behind him, in the reflection, a face began to form. Not his own, not Harold's. This one was eyeless, hollow, its mouth stretched open in a silent, endless scream. A vine coiled from its mouth and down the mirror's surface like a dark tear. The glass cracked. Elias turned and backed away, clutching his lantern, whispering to himself to hold on. Just hold on. Then silence again. And in that silence, a voice not from the hallway, but from within the room. "The root was here before the bones of the earth. It does not die. It learns. It waits." Elias felt the air grow colder. The lantern flickered. The reflection showed something growing across his arm. A tendril. It slithered from his sleeve and curled across his wrist like a bracelet of thorns. Panicking, he yanked it off, tearing skin, but the vine bled. Not red, but a thick black sap that hissed upon touching the floor. He had to get out. He found a fire escape behind rusted curtains. The stairwell was slick and trembling beneath his feet, the fog thick with spores. As he descended, he saw them, shapes moving just beyond the veil of mist. Dozens. Some walked, others crawled. Their bodies bore the scars of decay, yet they moved as one, as if guided by something beneath them, something deep in the soil. Outside, the fog clung to the ground like breath upon a corpse. He ran across the yard, past shattered statues of saints whose eyes had been gouged away by time or something darker. The wrought iron gate came into view, but something moved to block it. It was tall, towering, wrapped in vines and dressed in the rotting lab coat of a former physician. Its face was a mass of root and bone. Where its heart should have been, there pulsed a black flower, opening and closing rhythmically, as if breathing. Elias froze. The creature raised one long arm. From its fingers dropped pieces of old scalpels and broken keys. "You opened the gate," it said, its voice layered with echoes, many voices speaking at once. Elias backed away, trembling. "What are you?" "We are what comes after death. Not silence, not peace, but purpose. The root does not waste flesh. You will understand." He turned and fled into the marsh. Behind him the asylum pulsed like a living wound, vines stretching toward the sky, windows flickering with unnatural light. He ran until his lungs burned, until the mist swallowed the world. 3 months later, a hunter passing through Brackenmoor found Elias on the edge of the water, sitting beneath a dead tree. His hair was wild, his eyes bloodshot. He spoke little save for one sentence, repeated over and over. "They're not dead. Not really." He was taken to a facility and sedated. Doctors attributed his condition to exposure and trauma. But beneath his skin, just below the surface, something pulsed. A black vine twisting slowly toward his heart. And in the soil of Brackenmoor, the root waited.